There are two paths that you can choose with being a human here on Earth. And whichever path that you choose will determine if you continuously reincarnate again and again until you learn the lesson, or you will choose to not have to go through this constant reincarnation process. So in this video today, I'm going to talk about the two paths. I am going to talk about the path where it is more fear and ego-based, or the path where it is more love and unity-based. And so this teaching is coming from the book called The Law of One. And in the Law of One, there are a group of meditators, and there is one woman who is a channel. And what she channels is Ra. Ra is a sixth density consciousness. A sixth density consciousness is called a social memory complex. A social memory complex, what that is basically a group of souls that have come together in their knowledge to become one soul in a way. And what they do is they give information, so they channel through the being, in this instance, to give information from higher densities of consciousness to help lead souls through the lower densities of consciousness. So within the Law of One, this is a sixth density consciousness helping a third density soul go through its ascension process. And what the Law of One discusses, and the biggest topic that is discussed within the Law of One, is choosing your path. And you can choose the path of service to self or the path of service to others. Whichever path that you choose will determine where you ascend to. Ultimately, the path of service to self is a path where you are living from fear. You're living from ego. And so on the path of service to self, this is what we see in our world pretty much everywhere. We see that there is corruption, there is greed, there is the need for power. And that path is formed from the path of service to self. So in the biggest instance, this is corporations, this is elites, this is the government. This is people that are trying to control the narratives of our world. They are trying to push us more towards darkness. And so that is like the highest example of the path of service to self. But the path of service to self can also just be living from a place where you're not living from service and selfless service, but you instead have some form of intention that is around fear, that is the need for power, that is the need for money, and this is how it shows up. And so when you are choosing a path of service to self, you're choosing a path of fear. And the interesting part about this too is that we often think that a path of service to self will just mean that we're always thinking about ourselves or always doing the thing for ourselves or not treating people in the way that they are meant to be treated. But the interesting thing about this too is that whenever we are acting from a place of fear and choosing options from fear, choosing actions from fear, we are also choosing the path of service to self. Because when we are acting from fear, we are not choosing the path of love. And so that is service to self in a way. And so that is a major part of why we choose to incarnate onto this planet, is to choose our path. And during this time, we are choosing our path more than ever because our planet is going through its ascension process as well. Earth, the realm of Earth, is moving from third density consciousness to fourth density consciousness. And when you are in a third density consciousness realm, that is when you are ultimately choosing your path. So you can choose the path in third density consciousness where you forget. Third density consciousness, your soul incarnates and you forget and you experience pain and trauma. And you can choose to continuously live from that place, or you can choose to overcome that pain and trauma. But when you live continuously from pain and trauma, you are choosing that path of service to self. You are choosing the path of fear. And the thing is that when you choose the path of service to self, you can only ascend to a certain point. So what the Law of One speaks about and Ra communicates is that there have not been souls that have ascended past fourth density consciousness on the path of service to self. Because ultimately, you get to a place where you can't ascend any further on the path of service to self because you are living from a fear-based state. And so the biggest examples of this, like I said, the corporations and governments and elites and things like that, but it's also Hitler. It was a prime example of choosing the path of service to self. Somebody that drastically forgot that we are divine and that we are meant to choose the path of love ultimately, and forgot to that level of extent. That is the prime example of it. And so a lesser example is just like you choose fear in each moment over love. And so you have the choice here to choose which path you're going to take. Are you going to choose the path of fear, or are you going to choose the path of love? The path of love is service to others. And that is the precipice point on what path that we choose. So the path of service to others is ultimately the path that we want to choose to take. If you want to choose to take it, you are living from love. You are learning to love. And on this path as well, you are also learning to love yourself. So when we incarnate into this third density and we forget, there's the veil. And this is what the law of one talks about too, is the veil. The veil is like something that overcomes us when we incarnate into third density, specifically on earth, and we forget our divine nature. We forget that we're a soul that is abundant, that is enough just in the way that is connected to God and spirit. We completely forget that. And when we forget that, we experience the pain and the trauma that happens on this third density realm. When you choose to heal from that, you ultimately choose to remember. And as you choose to remember and heal, you're ultimately forming a deeper connection with yourself, learning about yourself, and remembering that you are divine, remembering that you are love. And so when you choose that path, you are ultimately choosing the path of service to others. You are choosing the path of love. Service to others is a path of love. And in this third density realm, we have two paths to choose, fear or love. And so the path of service to others is the path of service to love, ultimately choosing the path of love. And what service to others looks like is selfless service, is ultimately forming a very deep connection with yourself so that you find love within yourself, and then you give from that place of love. You're not doing it for money. You're not doing it for greed. You're not doing it for power. You're just doing it from a place of love. And this is something that's really hard. I know it's even difficult and hard for me to overcome doing things for money or for power. Like that is something to overcome because that has been deeply ingrained into our consciousness here in this earth realm, is to do things for money and power, because that's how our world runs, is that it runs on money. Although the more of us that choose the path of service to others and choose the path of love, these constructs that were formed from third density consciousness, that were formed from fear, that were formed from service to self, they ultimately have to fall, because love is always more powerful than fear. Love will always win over fear. So the more of us that choose the path of service to others, that choose the path of love, the more these third density service to self constructs will naturally fall away. This is the path of like New Earth. New Earth is not a place that we are going to go to physically. It is a place that we create here in this realm. We create it within ourselves by healing and choosing love within ourselves, finding love within ourselves, and then we choose that path of service to others. So service to others looks like that selfless service. And what selfless service looks like is that you remember your divine nature. You remember who you are, and you give your spiritual gifts to the world. And your spiritual gifts really come from a place of remembering, is that remembering that your soul has lived many lives. It has gone through densities of consciousness. And as you've gone through that, you have developed these God-given gifts. And you get to share those freely to the world. Doesn't mean that you do it for free. You don't have to do that. But the place that it's coming from is a place of love within your heart. And you then share that with the world. And you help others heal. You help others remember. You help others recognize their divine truth. And it is an incredibly rewarding path as well. Is that when you go on this path of service to others, I know that for myself, when you go on that path, God will always provide for you. So money, resources, whatever it is, God will always provide. And so if you're on this point of like, I don't know what path to choose, well, if you choose the path to go into your healing and then service to others, you will be provided for, because that is the ultimate choice that we make in this life. And as I mentioned in the beginning, if you don't want to reincarnate again and again and come into earth and forget and have to go through the pain and trauma and keep doing it over and over again, well, you choose the path of service to others. And you do that by remembering. When you remember and you choose the path of service to others, you ultimately continue on your ascension process. So you go to the fourth density, which is what we are truly all moving towards, is fourth density consciousness, which is love and unity, which is where we embody more of our light body and we embody love. And then we move to fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth. And that is our ascension process. And this happens in the third density when we choose the path of service to others. And then we continue on our ascension process. And that way we don't have to reincarnate again and again to remember and then finally choose that path. You can choose it right now. And you can stop that reincarnation process. Choose the path of service to others. And the way that you do this is first go into your healing. Go into releasing the pain and the trauma that is within you. Because as you're doing that, you are not only healing yourself, but you're helping heal this realm, the collective trauma from all the fear-based narratives that have been stored inside the collective consciousness. And so you get to help clear that. And the more of us choose that path, naturally, this world, this realm, everything is going to evolve in nature because we are all connected. We are all one, and we get to choose that path together. So go into your healing. Go into your healing, feel the pain, feel the trauma. The way that you do that is, for myself and the people that I help, is through breath work. We do it through breath work. We do it through somatic healing. We do it in group containers where we see one another. And ultimately, we feel our emotions fully. We feel the pain and the trauma. We release that, find deep love within ourselves. And then we move on that path of service to others. So go into your healing. And then as you go into your healing, you're going to start to remember. You're going to remember your divine truth. You're going to remember why you came to this planet. You're going to remember your God-given mission here. And then you're going to start to be able to live that because you remember, and you now have these gifts inside of yourself that you get to go and share with the world. And then you are abundantly provided for because God is going to give you all the resources because you're living in the path of service to others and your God-given mission. This is how you do it. This is the path. This is the path that I know that I'm on. And this is the path that I know that others that I'm helping are on too. And you get to choose this path too. So go into the healing, go into giving your gifts to the world and serving selflessly, so that you can go through your true ascension and go on the path that your soul is destined for. That is it. That is how you do it. And if you want a space where I teach you this exact process, it's Ascension University. It's the first link down in the description. I take you through this process of healing, stepping into your gifts, and serving selflessly to the world, where you will be abundantly provided for. So if that sounds like something that you are interested in, come and join hundreds of others in the space where we are doing it. It's the first link down in the description. We have people each and every single day that are drastically healing and are stepping into their gifts. I hope you enjoyed today's video. I love you so much, and I will see you in the next